We are the Ministry of the Real Truth, and we've just finished watching in its entirety this interview by the Gnostic informant with this Professor Garbania, PhD, who is in it claiming that Jewish writings never existed prior to their being taken into Persia. They came out from there apparently, and probably were heavily influenced or even written by the Hellenistic Greeks. So he thought, well, as Gnostic informant, wow, really? Oh, what? That sort of thing. We decided to go online and check out his claim that that's actually true. So we found a book online, 3 Studies on Judeo-Persian Epics by Vera, Basch, Moreen. Okay, we wondered who the heck was she. So look for some evidence on her. It's very little, but she is highly qualified. And there's some information on her book, and there's a Wikipedia article all about her. So again, she was highly qualified, or she is highly qualified. And she says, literature-wise, there is an extensive Judeo-Persian poetic religious literature closely modelled on classical Persian poetry. The most famous poet was Maulana Shirazi, 14th century CE, who composed epic versifications of parts of the Bible. So he took from there, such as the story of Moses, and composed this poetry promoting the Persian heroes. Okay, they were rather like Moses, but he was pushing these Persian heroes of the day, promoting them. This Persian poet composed epic versifications of parts of the Bible, such as the Musa Nama, an epic poem recounting the story of Moses. Later poets composed lyric poetry of a Sufi caste, that religion. It's very lovely, etc., and they dance around, spin around, and all that sort of stuff. We have experienced that with a friend. Much of this literature was collected around the beginning of the 20th century by the Bukharian rabbi Shimon Hakam, who founded a printing press in Israel. Okay, so after the Gutenberg press was created, maybe this person decided to get one or create one or establish printing in Israel. Okay, so we are going back to this book, and it reads Legend of Adam in the Judeo-Persian epic Bereshit, or Genesis in English, Nama, from the 14th century. Judeo-Persian literature is one of the most promising and least explored corners of Jewish belles lettres. And you're probably wondering, what the heck is that? What does that mean? Belles lettres, defined, means a category of writing originally meaning beautiful or fine writing. In the modern sense, it is a label for literary works that do not fit into the major categories such as fiction, poetry, or drama. At the centre of this corner, and surely its greatest achievement, is the cycle of 2 epics based on the Pentateuch, the Book of the Law of Instruction, 5 books of Moses, composed by Maulana Shirazi in the 14th century, undoubtedly inspired by the great epics of Iranian literature. Ferdowsi's died 1010, Shah Nama and Nizami's, maybe that's dated around 1209, epic romances, the Kamsa or Quintet. Shaheen aspired to similar literary heights through his versification of sizable parts of the Pentateuch with 5 books of Moses. His biography is impossible to reconstruct based on the scant information available, as his Nisbah indicates he lived in Shiraz, but some have claimed Kashan as his native town. In Shaheen's day, Shiraz was the thriving capital of the province of Fars, where people speak Farsi obviously, ruled by the Il-Khanid dynasty, descendants of Genghis Khan, who reigned until the city fell to Tamerlane in 1393. Shaheen's florid, the only solid information we possess about him, links him to the reign of Sultan Abu Sa'id, 1316 to 36. This is revealed in the panegyrics he addressed to Abu Sa'id in 2 of his works, Chapter 4 of Musa Nama and Chapter 5 of Adashir Nama. The conventional words of praise in these panegyrics do not mean that Shaheen had direct contact with the Sultan, for they consist of general flatteries, nor are we in a position to ascertain whether a Jew could have had access to the ruler, despite the greater tolerance of the Mongols and of many of their descendants. But this possibility cannot be ruled out. More exciting and perhaps more important from a literary point of view is the fact that Shaheen was an older contemporary of Iran's great lyrical poet Hafiz, around 1320 to 88, though we know of no link between the two poets. And there's a footnote down here. Shaheen seems to have set to verse only the narrative, non-legal portions of the Pentateuch. So, nothing to do with the law. He's missed that out, right? He's omitted it. His interest appears to be focused on biblical heroes and their deeds, just as the great Iranian epics are generally hero-oriented. In order to glorify the major characters of the Pentateuch, Shaheen uses not only midrashic embellishments, but their Muslim counterparts as well. So he's using what's said to be the Jewish and the Muhammadan or Muslim counterparts or stories as well. Probably mixing the two, or taking bits and pieces from both of them. As this study shows, Shaheen does not hesitate to use Muslim sources, especially the Qisas al-Anbiya stories about the prophets, genre on which he seems to rely heavily. Since his epics have survived only in Judeo-Persian manuscripts, Shaheen's audience must be presumed to have been primarily Jewish. However, the language of the epics is classical Persian, and because all epic literature in Iran circulated orally, we can assume that Shaheen's Muslim neighbours would also have been attracted to stories they could not only understand, but in which they could recognise familiar strands from their own tradition and their religion, probably. It is not entirely clear in what order Shaheen versified his epics. According to Wilhelm Bacher, one of the earliest scholars of Judeo-Persian literature, and more recently according to Amon Nitza, the Genesis epic is the last composition of the cycle, known either as Bereshit, Nama, or as Yusuf and Zulakia. This part of the epic appears to have been written in 1358. Shaheen's own name for the cycle of epics as a whole, or for the individual epics, does not seem to have survived. In 1901, Shimon Hakam, a Bukharan rabbi who immigrated to Jerusalem, published the entire cycle in a non-critical edition under the all-encompassing title Sefer Shaheen al-Ha-Torah. It is he who bestowed separate titles to its major components: Bereshit, Nama, the book of Genesis, and Musa, Nama, the book of Moses. The second composition, about which this particular author has written elsewhere, seems to be the earlier layer of the epic cycle. It was composed in 1327. In addition to these, Shaheen had written at least two other epics inspired by biblical tales: Adashir Nama, based on the book of Esther, and Ezra Nama, its possible continuation, based on the book of Ezra. According to Amnon Nitzer, the last two epics were composed around 1332. And it has some footnotes down the bottom here. The literary and historical value of Shaheen's epics remains to be determined through analysis of its language and imagery, literary sources, diction, and rhetoric. Only studies of all these components can establish the nature and extent of Shaheen's indebtedness to his Iranian Muslim literary environment, and thus determine the boundaries of his originality. Then his place in the ranks of distinguished Jewish poets of the Middle Ages can be evaluated. This introductory study will confine itself to an analysis of Shaheen's sources and his treatment of the theme of Adam's fall in Bereshit, or in the Persian Nama. Shaheen's Bereshit, or Nama, is a masnavi. And what does that mean? Footnote here. A masnavi consists of a series of rhymed distichs. It was a literary vehicle used often in classical Persian literature, its subject ranging from heroic, historic, and romantic epic poetry to didactic and scientific discourses. See Jan Reipka, History of Iranian Literature, Direct, 1968, page 98. Reference there. It's approximately 9,000 verses long, divided into 159 chapters. It is set in the epic Mita Hazaj Musadas. The order of its contents generally follows that of the weekly divisions, and so forth, of the Torah, the Parashot HaShavua, interspersed, as we shall see, with an abundance of Midrashic and especially Muslim legendary elements. Okay, and then she says, before analysing the story, let her summarise Shaheen's account of the creation of Adam and his fall. Shaheen devotes approximately 331 verses, scattered in 13 chapters, 13 to 26, to Adam's history, based primarily on the biblical accounts. He begins in chapter 10 by explaining, as does the Midrash, that God created Adam on Friday. How do they know? Were they there? Over the opposition of the angels, because he wishes to bestow on him and on his progeny dominion over all the wonderful things he had created. According to Shaheen, God planned to create Adam out of earth and light. Verse 2 and 4. Man's clay is kneaded out of pure light, out of water and earth mixed together. He does not specify from where the soil for Adam's body was taken. Having created him superior to all previous creations, God asked the angels to bow before Adam's still lifeless frame. The angels obeyed, all except Satan, whose act of defiance, conceived here almost entirely in Muslim legendary terms, earned him expulsion from heaven as well as eternal damnation. After his conflict with Satan, God turned his attention again to Adam, caressing him with the bounty of his own light, making for him an umbrella out of his mercy. As soon as he was endowed with soul, Adam jumped up and uttered spontaneous praises of God, testifying to his oneness and might. At once God rewarded him further by bestowing on him all knowledge and of mysteries, including knowledge of his exalted names. God then explained to Adam that everything he had created was for his sake and for the sake of his descendants, whom God would always protect. And very different to it being all created by the Son of God, the manifestation of God, the Muta, for his benefit. Very, very different twist on it. He placed Adam in the Garden of Eden, drawing his attention to all its delights. Verse 407. Know that the delights of paradise are countless. Its roses are without thorns, its wine without intoxication. So you can touch these roses and not get thorns in your fingers, and you can drink the wine and not get drunk. But this is metaphorical, obviously. However, he warned Adam not to eat of the wheat. And down the bottom here, footnote, Jewish sources give several identifications of the forbidden fruit: fig, grape, apple of paradise, etrog, wheat, which grew on stalks as tall as the cedars of Lebanon, those trees, and a nut, Ginsburg Legends 597, number or note 70, and the sources cited there. Okay, so this guy is saying it's wheat, as tall as cedar trees of Lebanon. However, God warned Adam not to eat of the wheat in this garden lest he should die. But, verse 4 and 5, Adam's heart inclined toward the wheat, since God forbade it, or he was drawn towards that wheat because God said, no, do not eat it. Okay, but he did not eat of it. But of the delights of paradise, great and small, Adam loved it best of all. Confessing his love for this particular tree, because it was so tall like a cedar tree from Lebanon, Adam asked God for it. God consented, enjoining him again not to eat from it. He told him, no, you're not to eat it. At this point, Shaheen interrupts his tale with a number of didactic verses, pondering the events unfolding in the Garden of Eden. So maybe he's like asking questions, okay, or ad-libbing, saying, why did God say that? Why did he tell Adam not to do that? Maybe. He poses three questions. Here you go. 1. Did God actually give the wheat to Adam as a gift? 2. Why did Satan or Iblis lose his dwelling in paradise? 3. Why was Iblis cursed for not bowing down before Adam, while idolatrous men are not similarly cursed? The answers are discussed below, paragraphs 168 to 170. Shaheen, the poet, mentions that Adam had another wife before Eve. Without naming her, he explains why she was not a suitable mate for Adam. Verse 462. Adam was made out of earth, and she, this wife, was made out of air. They did not delight one another. Earth and air cannot be friends. Toil comes to earth from air. But, seeing how miserable this wife made Adam, God had mercy on Adam and took that div away. Must be a word in Persian, right? Adam felt profoundly lonely, especially when he saw all the paired creatures in paradise. After bestowing proper names on them, according to Shahin, he actually asked God for a mate, or a companion, or a helper. Verse 478. These are all male and female. They are all each other's companions. I also need a mate with whom to share joys and sorrows frankly. Why would you be upset in the Garden of Paradise? You'd be all happy, wouldn't you? What would cause you to be upset? If you had like a pretty cool mindset and everything around you was so beautiful and all that sort of stuff. Maybe that was there. God then created Eve in the manner related to in Genesis. She was extremely lovely, so he creates the second wife, right? This companion. Verse 484. When Adam awoke from his pleasant sleep, he saw a sun-cheeked moon at his side, of subtle heart and lovely appearance, of delicate cheer, a rose-cheeked beauty. Light shone from her countenance. So this his poem, right? This Persian poet's composition. Okay, it's talking about this newly created companion from Eve. Okay, divs are the demons of Iranian mythology. The term derives from the Avestan and Vedic deva and the Pahlavi div, meaning demon, devil. In Muslim Iran, they came to share many of the characteristics of Satan. For a fuller explanation, see David Yerushalmi, the Judeo-Persian Imrani, and his Ganj name, PhD, etc., etc., University, 1986, page 239, note 12. So that would explain all of that. Okay, so Adam's soul was astonished by that houri, when he beheld this charming creature, slender, delicate, good, and desirable, her appearance like the shining sun, a lovely face, a stature like a cypress tree. Adam fell deeply in love with her and praised the God of heaven. Okay, so this is again poetry. This Shahin's poetry. Shahin describes the bliss of the first couple in raptured verses. Then in chapter 18 he returns to recount Iblis, or Satan's vengeful state of mind ever since his expulsion from paradise. In Iblis' estimation, his fall from grace was entirely due to Adam. He's playing the blame game, using him as a scapegoat. He plotted his revenge and planned to trick Adam so that he too would be expelled from the Garden of Eden. But as Iblis explains to the snake, he had a hard time trying to outwit Adam. Verse 542. I am unable to deceive him, or Adam. Greater is he than the deeds of 300 like Iblis, or like Satan. He saw his chance once Eve was created. Delighted by her loveliness, Iblis was nevertheless prepared to use her for his ends, mysteriously aware of the fact that woman is good at deception. Yes. He pondered his plan long and hard and determined that he must first find a partner to help him. He chose the snake, one of the most beautiful creatures in the garden, and through flattery and friendship obtained its cooperation. He urged the snake to tempt Eve. Verse 545. Adroitly and with a sweet tongue, you can surely make her go astray. Even a good woman can deviate from the road, pursuing the gratifications of her desires. A footnote at the bottom here. Both Jewish and Muslim sources claim that prior to its role in the ensuing deception, the snake was one of the loveliest creatures in paradise. See Ginsberg's Legends, etc., etc. W. M. Thaxton, The Tales of the Prophets of Al-Kisai, Boston, 1978, page 38. Okay, then he's told to guide her along with the grain of wheat, turn that moon-faced one astray. That's what this Iblis or Satan was saying to the snake. If Eve succumbed, she was bound to pull her husband along Iblis assured the snake, and then both would be deprived of immortality. They would be expelled from paradise. So they're created to live forever, according to this. The snake accepted Iblis' assignment, and as it is well known, he had no difficulty persuading Eve to taste the wheat, promising her power and immortality. So he didn't tempt her in this composition to take fruit from the forbidden tree. It was the wheat, because this wheat had grown as tall as a cedar tree. So he was tempting her to take that, because God said to Adam, don't eat that. Okay, the snake persuaded Eve to taste the wheat, or to eat the wheat, promising her power and immortality. Eve, in turn, encountered little difficulty persuading Adam. Okay, the snake persuaded her to eat it, so she ate it, and then she persuaded Adam to eat it. Once they both ate, verse 582, their understanding increased in that instant. Turning away from order and custom, their sight was opened wide. They became conscious. They had a conscience. They looked into creation. They knew that they were bare and naked. They looked down and saw they had no clothes on. Their eyes shed tears of pain, or that they had no protection from God. They weren't of God, right? They'd looked something about them they'd lost, right? They were no longer immortal but mortal, etc., etc. That moment of awareness was followed immediately by remorse or regret. When God called out to Adam, the latter was already hiding in a tree, out of fear and dread. When questioned by him, Adam confessed that it was Eve who offered the wheat. She in turn blamed the snake, and it blamed Iblis, so they're playing the blame game. Upon God's reprimand, Iblis showed no remorse, maintaining that Adam got what he deserved. Okay, he's telling God, trying to convince God, yeah, well, because of him, this devil, this Satan, former angel, lost his position, etc., etc., all because of that guy. It's all his fault. He's to blame. It was, after all, on his account that, verse 617, I fell from exaltation into evil. I am cut off from those near your threshold. I have not repaid him 1 in 100, yet I am his enemy for all eternity. Okay, he hasn't done payback before that to Adam. God then reiterated his curse of Iblis. Verse 622. Oh, you who are ill-starred, you will remain accursed until resurrection day. You will never escape from the curse. You will remain eternally in my wrath, or under my curse or anger, right? The other protagonists were also cursed in the well-known fashion. The snake, in particular, was punished by losing its famous beauty. In a logical manner, Adam was enjoined to earn his livelihood through the instrument of his downfall. Verse 660. You've eaten of the fruit which makes one die, and have relinquished immortality forever. Since you ate wheat, work with it. Keep farming. In other words, become an agriculturist, a farmer, like it or not. Work with it, eat it until in old age. Limping, you'll die at last a hard death. I have created you from earth. You will return to it quickly when it's time to go. When it's time to die, right? When the days are up. Unlike Iblis, both Adam and Eve repented intensely for their deed. According to Shaheen, they fell in different places on earth when they were chased out of the garden. Adam fell on a mountain top in Samaria, where he spent 100 years crying and roaming about in penitential worship. His penitence was rewarded. Verse 690. The Almighty forgave him on account of that affliction, forgave him, absolved him of his sin. Adam became again one of the palace elite, knowledgeable in all the sciences. Shaheen describes briefly a similar mode of repentance through which Eve was absolved. After their separation, the two parents of mankind met again after 100 years, forgiven by God and forgiving each other. They proceeded with joy to create the first family. So it's like they had a divorce, right? Separated for a while and then got back together. One of the most interesting areas open for investigation in Shaheen's epics is the nature and identity of the non-biblical and non-Jewish sources he used. Okay, so he used both non-biblical and non-Jewish sources. Although he seems to have relied on Midrashim, the author's investigation thus far seemed to indicate that he is deeply indebted to Israelite literature, that is, to Muslim literature that deals with themes and characters from the Pentateuch. In what follows, the author will demonstrate Shaheen's reliance on Muslim sources through a number of details found in his treatment of the legends about Adam. So perhaps this guy here, this professor, is either not aware or aware but hiding the fact that this Persian lot were all influenced, their poems, the Shaheen poet, etc., were all influenced by the then Mohammedans or Islam, Muslims, right? And that's why there's a vast difference. Okay, there's no Jewish literature there at that period because it's all Muslim, heavily influenced Muslim through Mohammedanism, Islam, right? By this poet, he's taken the Jewish literature and he's made a composition, basically plagiarizing the story of Moses, Esther, Ezra, etc., and promoting the then or prior long dead heroes of the Persians. Okay. Perhaps. Again, it says that this author would demonstrate Shaheen's reliance on Muslim sources through a number of details found in his treatment of the legends about Adam. There is no need to go into a complete recounting of the ample details that surround Adam's history in Jewish sources, but as we shall see, Shaheen borrows a number of important details from the Quran. It is doubtful that he does so consciously or that he was personally able to read the Quran in Arabic. After all, the purpose of Judeo-Persian text was to disseminate knowledge through the Hebrew script. Disseminate knowledge through the Hebrew script, so there must have been Hebrew writings at that time or prior, and avoid acquaintance with the script and language of Islam. When did Islam come to its fruition? Right, 6th or 7th century, perhaps. Nevertheless, Quranic stories as these came to be known, maybe it was, we're pretty sure it's 6th or 7th century when Muhammad turned up on the scene, right? Nevertheless, Quranic stories as these came to be known through the popular versions based on Quranic commentaries, and especially through the Qisas al-Anbiya genre, must have been pervasive in Shaheen's environment. They must have been the top thing at that particular time, in his location, right? His living it, the land he was living in, Persia. The Quran mentions Adam several times, at least on 2 occasions in Surahs 7:19 to 25 and 20:115 to 122. It mentions Adam's act of disobedience. The first passage reads, the popular genre of storytelling about the prophets, known as Qisas al-Anbiya, flourished in the Muslim world in the first 2 centuries after the advent of Islam, when there was intense contact between the conquering Muslims and the conquered Christian and Jewish populations of the Near East. It would appear that the amplifications of the Quranic tales was the achievement of Jewish converts to Islam. So maybe they were responsible. The various versions of the stories remained in oral circulation, verbally, right, and were popular mostly among the uneducated classes who had little or no access to the more learned literature of Hadith and Quranic commentaries developing around the same time. Eventually, with the decline of the role of storytellers, Qusas, the tales were collected and written down. Some of the most important collections are Abu Ishaq Ahmad B. Muhammad al-Thablaz, dated around 1036 and so forth. In Persian, the most authoritative collection appears to have been Abu Ishaq Ibrahim B. Mansur B. Khalaf al-Nisaburi's 11th century, see note 26. This summary is based on Thaxton, the Tales, paragraph 15 to 16. Okay, and it continues. The Quran mentions Adam several times, at least on 2 occasions, in Surah 7:19 to 25 and 21:115 to 122. It mentions Adam's act of disobedience. The first passage reads 19, and unto man, O Adam, this is God speaking to man, right? O Adam, thou and thy wife in the garden, and eat from whence you will be, but come not nigh this tree, lest you become wrongdoers. So there was Romeo and Juliet, Shakespeare speak peoples. Then Satan whispered to them that he might, they talk like that, right? Then Satan whispered to them that he might manifest unto them that which was hidden from them of their shame. And he said, your Lord forbade you from this tree, only lest you should become angels and become of the immortals, or live forever. And he swore unto them, saying, lo, or look, take note, I am a sincere adviser unto you. Thus did he lead them on with guile. And when they tasted of the tree, their shame was manifest to them, and they began to hide by heaping on themselves some of the leaves of the garden. And the Lord called them, saying, did I not forbid you from that tree, and tell you, lo, Satan, hey, look, Satan, watch out for Satan, he's an open enemy to you. And they said, our Lord, we have wronged ourselves. If thou forgive us not, and have not mercy on us, surely we are of the lost. He said, go down from hence, one of you, a foe unto the other. There will be for you on earth a habitation and provision for a while. A place of safety, probably. And providing all the things that you need to live on, I'll provide for you. He said, there shall ye live, and there shall ye die, and thence shall ye be brought forth. Resurrected from that, probably. The author could not discuss here the extent to which Quranic narratives about Old and New Testament prophets are themselves based on Jewish and early Christian sources. Several scholars, foremost among them Abraham Geiger and Bernard Haller, have investigated this question rather thoroughly. The author's main concern here is to note that Quranic tales became ever more fleshed out in the popular imagination, and the extent to which the details present in these non-Quranic versions penetrated Jewish writings such as the Pentateuch epics of Shahin. So it's basically saying this person has gone into them and then pulled out from them and adapted these stories to suit his compositions, his poetry, etc. There would appear to be little doubt, at least in the case of Shahin's epics, that the intermediary between the Quran and the epics was a popular genre of Qisas al-Anbiya. Specifically, as we shall see, it must have been the Persian collection of Abu Ishaq Ibrahim B. Mansur B. Khalaf al-Nisaburi, probably accessible to Shahin in an oral version, verbally. That was his principal source of information, so someone obviously told him about it, spoke to him about it. For the Muslim embellishments included in his epics, the author would shows below the close connection that appears to exist between the two works. The first non-Jewish detail in Shahin's narrative about Adam concerns Adam's spontaneous praise of God as soon as he was created. Shahin has Adam declaim, praise be to you, O Lord, etc., etc. In Al-Thalabi, we find that as soon as God endowed Adam with a soul, God the Exalted inspired him to say, praise be to God, Lord of the two worlds. And this was the first utterance that came on his tongue, or out of his mouth. Al-Kisa-I, with his penchant for unusual details, says, then the Spirit reached Adam's nose and he sneezed. The sneeze opened the blocked passages, and Adam said, praise be to God, who is now and ever shall be. This was the first thing spoken by Adam. Similarly, Al-Nisaburi claims in Arabic that when the soul reached his head, he sneezed and God told him to say, praise be to God. So he basically told him, say this, say this. It may be that these details ultimately go back to a Jewish source, such as Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer, itself not earlier than the 9th century and possibly influenced by Muslim sources, where we find that Adam, as soon as he was created and beheld the wonders of creation, was moved to utter the words of Psalms 104:24, O Lord, how manifold are thy works. Muslim sources agree with Jewish claims in the Midrash that soon after he was created, God endowed Adam with all types of knowledge, but Shahin adds a detail that also seems to come from Muslim sources. He says, verse 354, he, Adam, came to know the exalted names God made him preferred above all. So God instructed him on those names, right? He didn't know them prior. God put it into his mind. These are my names. To our ears, this echoes the Quranic verse, and he taught Adam all the names. There you go. God, or Allah, taught all the names to Adam, the names of God. Surah 231. It's a reference, which in addition to referring to Adam naming all the creatures, was sometimes explained to imply that God had granted Adam the knowledge of the divine names reflected in creation. So when he was naming all those animals, it was God saying, well, Adam, that's a cow. Adam, that's a bunny rabbit. That's a horse. You know, so he said, oh, horse. Oh, bunny rabbit. You know, all that sort of stuff. So he didn't think all those names up himself. These names refer to his Quranic attributes contained in the chain of the 99 most beautiful names, names that were to play an important role in later mystical theories in the life of prayer, and were sometimes used in almost magical connections, and so forth. So to sum it all up, you can read this further. It's free online to have a look at, and it's basically saying from this author that this was all a composition by this poet, Persian poet Shaheen, and he was told all these different things orally or verbally by somebody else, and he's taken stories of Moses, Esther, Ezra, etc. from the Pentateuch and made them into Persian heroes, right? You could say he plagiarized it, but got away with it because there's no one around to say, hey, you plagiarized it, here's a big hefty fine for doing so, you breached the copyright, here's a copyright strike, all this sort of stuff, right? There's no one there to correct them on it. So that's what he's basically done. So this guy here, it seems, may not realise that it was all plagiarised from those specific Jewish writings in that particular time, from the Pentateuch and those stories of Esther, Ezra, etc., and Moses, and made into this Persian Judeo-Muslim rendering. So what we suggest is go and watch this video, okay, and go and study this particular book. We'll leave a link to both under this video, to realise that this is what this particular Persian poet Shihan, or Shinan, or what his name is, has actually done. If you like this video, if it awakens your eyes to the truth, okay, makes you realise, hey, yeah, that's right, this guy's taken it, he's plagiarised it from the Pentateuch, Jewish sources that were there at the time, and he's made it into a Persian poetry, right, etc., etc., a compilation. Then give us a like, subscribe to our channel, Ministry of the Real Truth, add your comments below, and get back to you on those as soon as we can, and then go share this with all your family, friends and others, Christian friends who may not be aware of this. They may fall for what this guy says, because he's got PhD after his name, he's highly qualified, he's done this and he's done that, but he could be leading you down the wrong path, okay, by not realising the very small details that we just indicated to you. Thank you for taking the time to watch this, our latest video upload.